I guess that's where we start. So, hello. Thank you for taking the time to check this out. I finished this book a couple days ago, been thinking about it, and been thinking about starting a YouTube channel. So, here we go. This is my favorite book by Miley. It's my least... Wow, let's roll that back. So, this book that I held up is Melting Stones by Tamora Pierce. Tamora Pierce is a young adult author, young adult fantasy author, and Melting Stones is the second book of a collection of standalone novels that are in the sort of Circle Reforged collection, but they're all in the same world, and they're kind of, these three are tied together. Tamora Pierce. Okay, so she's got, I don't know, I guess I should have looked that up. Oh well. More than 30 books, I think, between two fantasy worlds that I think are not connected to each other. First was the Tortal fantasy world, starts with Alana and the First Adventure. I am certain I'm going to talk about that at some other point. And then there is this series, the Circle of Magic series, that takes place in Emmeland and other lands around the Endless Ocean and Pebbled Sea. There we go. So that's the two worlds. This one takes place in Emmeland. This is my least favorite book by my favorite author. 30 books, something has to be at the bottom of the list. And this one is it. I have one main issue with it, and then there's two other aspects of it that are not flaws of the book. They're just reasons that I think that is my least favorite of the however many books are in the series. First, it's first-person point of view. It's the only book in the Circle of Magic series that is first-person point of view. In the Tortal series as well, there's only one series where the POV character is written in first person. That doesn't strictly bother me. It's just different than the rest. I like the character. I like her voice. Her voice is convincingly a young woman who doesn't think much of people as a concept. She just prefers cats and rocks. I forgot to get into the magic of this world. There's academic magic, which is a little bit more common. I think the statistics for it were stated somewhere as like a 1 in 10 kind of. And then you have what most of our main characters are, ambient mages. Their magic comes through something of the real world, but it's something specific. So Briar is Evie's teacher. Rosethorn is Briar's teacher. They are both plant mages. Briar found Evie. That's why he's her teacher, but she's actually a stone mage. Her magic attracts the heart of a mountain to come and meet her and decide to spend time with more active people instead of staying in his mountain where he'd been since he'd been thrust up through the crust of the earth. That's part of what's talked about in this book. It's a great book. So first person POV, it's just different. The second thing that's different was, so with Alana the First Adventure and the whole Song of the Lioness series, that's Alana's story, it was originally written as an adult novel, and knowing that, you can see that it's rewritten and split up to be a quartet, to be a young adult quartet. But knowing that it's adult, reading it as an adult, you can see what it was going to be. As Tamora Pierce published over the years, I found the stories becoming more mature, which worked for me. I was becoming more mature. So then when Melting Stones came out, I feel like this one dialed back the maturity to an extent. And I was headed towards new adult at the time that this was published in 2008. So again, that's just another reason why this becomes the least favorite of my favorite authors' extensive bibliography. And then now to the main issue that to me is an actual issue, but it's still just my issue. You can read this book and not be bothered by what I'm about to say is my issue with this book, especially if you read it without reading any other book in the series, which you can do actually because you can. So the three standalone novels in the Circle Reforged collection is Will of the Empress came out first, then came out Melting Stones, then came out Battle Magic. I read Melting Stones once when it came out, and then I read Battle Magic once when it came out. I had the same problem with Battle Magic that I had with Melting Stones, where the maturity wasn't... I don't know, something about it didn't... because it went backwards in time, maybe, is why I felt that way. No, that's not true. No, my problem with and so my problem with Battle Magic when I read it when it first came out, I don't know how else to say this without just overcomplicating it. I felt like it took a war that was... So, Briar, Rosethorn, and Evie went through a war. When you read The Will of the Empress, they are 6 months home from the war, and that's when this story starts as well, Melting Stones. So then comes Battle Magic, the events of that war, taking place 2 years prior to The Will of the Empress and Melting Stones. And the details that are introduced in The Will of the Empress and Melting Stones don't strictly match. The details that are introduced through dialogue or memory don't match what happens in the narrative of Battle Magic. Kind of in more than one place in both details and structure. For example, Luvo, the mountain spirit who decides to travel with them, depending on which of the 3 books you're talking about, they either met him in Yanjing or they met him in Zhangji, depending on which book you're talking about. He either was with all 3 of them when they went into Zhangji, or what happens in Battle Magic, he meets Evie first and then helps her get back to Briar and Rosethorn. Spoilers. By the way, this book came out in 2008, so sorry for not saying that sooner. I forgot. Moving on. Well, actually, there's not really anywhere to move on to. That's my issue. That's an example of, and it happens in more than one detail, but I guess I don't really need to spoil the whole thing for you. It doesn't ruin the experience of reading. They're well written, they're excitingly written, they're well paced, and they're kind of educational without being, dry, without being like out of place. It makes sense for the character to be learning that thing, and the way it's presented makes sense so that it just goes with the story. Do I want to say anything else about it? Like I said, don't misunderstand from this. It's a great book, right? Everything I just said. And those are just my 3 issues. They don't have to be an issue for anyone else. If you want to pick it up without picking up any other book in the series, it's this long. Briar's not in this book at all. This one just focuses on Rosethorn and Evie. What's the summary of the book? I didn't even tell you. 4 years have passed since Evie left the streets of Chemur to begin her training as a stone mage. At 14, she's unhappy to be on a new journey with her mentor, prickly green mage Rosethorn, who has been called to the Battle Islands to determine why the plants and animals there are dying. Evie's job is to listen and learn, but she just can't keep quiet and do nothing. With the help of Luvo, the living stone heart of a mountain, Evie uncovers an important clue. Now with the island on the brink of disaster, it's up to Evie to halt sheer destruction. So, you want to read about finding a volcano, learning about plate tectonics through the context of a fantasy world? It's definitely young adult. I guess back to what I said at the start, I just wanted to talk about Tamora Pierce, this book. I plan on talking about several others of her books, and I've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel, as many people do. I keep looking over there at my stack of Tamora Pierce books in case you were curious. Anything else? I didn't